Hello everyone. I want to discuss conflict competence theory as one of the theories under the social psychological perspective in conflict. When we think of conflict competence theory, this really is raising the issue of how do we relate to others, or what level of competency do we show in managing conflict when we relate to others. They're essentially two components of conflict competence. One is effectiveness and the other one is appropriateness. So under this particular theory, it's argued that you are competent in conflict when you engage in behavior that is effective and in behavior that is appropriate. So let's take a look at some of the components of effective behavior. So effective behavior really asks a basic question. Does the behavior that you're engaging in during this conflict help accomplish the goals that you have set, or helps accomplish the goals in this social interaction between you and the other individual, or you and the people with whom you're having conflict? Essentially, each person in a conflict has different goals. And these goals can be broken down into three different types of goals. The first one is an instrumental goal. An instrumental goal looks at the types of outcomes or the resources that are sought during a conflict. So, for example, what do I want what resources do I want out of this? Do I want more power? Do I want a particular type of equipment? What is the thing? Why am I engaging in this particular behavior? Is it to accomplish to get a piece of equipment that I want? Is it to get an outcome that I actually want? Is it to get a promotion? Is it to get more money? What is the thing that I'm really looking for in this conflict? So that is what we call an instrumental goal. It has a very functional purpose. A relational goal looks at our behaviors in a conflict and whether or not we want to maintain a relationship with the people with whom we're in conflict after this conflict has ended. So you'll find that if our goal is a relational goal, meaning that we want to maintain a relationship, that we would make choices that may seem like avoidance of the conflict, or we make choices that may seem like we're trying to collaborate more during that conflict interaction. So this goal, in terms of effectiveness, lends to the question, or leads to the idea that we're engaging in this behavior because we want to have a good relationship with this individual after the conflict. So that's a second goal that we can have when we look at effectiveness. The third type of goal that we may have is self-preservation. So in this one, we are asking the question, in this goal, we are asking the question, am I engaging in the behaviors so that I can preserve the image that others have of me, right? So if we think back to, or if we think ahead to face saving or face negotiation, right? What is this image that I'm portraying? So for example, let's say I am someone who I just had in this conflict interaction, I started shouting, right? But I don't want to be someone who's seen as shouting. Then what I may do is I may then engage in a behavior, because I may look at that as ineffective, right? That's very ineffective behavior because it's not allowing me to accomplish my goals of saving face. So what I may then do is I may engage in other behavior to start reducing that negative portrayal of that face that came out when I was shouting. So these are just three goals that we may have when we are looking at effectiveness, or does the behavior that I'm engaging in help me accomplish the goals that I have for myself? And the goals that I have for myself can be one of these or a combination of all of these goals based on the behavior that I am engaging in. There's a point to note here that you would see that that as individuals, we prioritize the goals. And one minute we may prioritize face saving or self-preservation goals. Another moment we may prioritize relational goals. In some cases, very specific actions in a conflict shows us what we are prioritizing, yes, in that moment. And the choices that we make, which determine what we prioritize or which indicate what we prioritize, those choices are impacted by how we weigh the goals that I mentioned above, right? By how we weigh and we place importance on those goals that we have. So if the raise is a thing that I really want, and I don't really care what my relationship is with my boss at the end of this, then I'm going to pursue getting that raise in a very particular way. Um, if the thing that I want to focus on is a relationship, then I may submerge or subvert my desire for that raise and engage in the conflict in a way that preserves the relationship, the relational aspect of that interaction. The second thing is, or the second component that I want to discuss is this idea of appropriateness. Does this conflict or does this behavior in which I'm engaging align with the ethical or moral goals that I have for myself, for the organization I'm engaging in, or even for society? So this really asks the question, how are the behaviors in which we're engaging perceived by others, or how are the behaviors in which I am engaging perceived by others? Are these behaviors the norm? Is it expected that what I did, what I, for some, so for some of us, when we're in a conflict, we may form our mouths as though we want to curse, but we don't really curse, like what the, and we stop. So from our mindset, right, why we might do that is actually using the curse word or actually using the obscenity. It may be seen as something that is inappropriate, but just mouthing it or just forming as though we're about to say it might be seen as more appropriate. So we may do that as opposed to the other. But then the question, it begs the question, right? Even just starting to say it, does that also, is that also seen as appropriate or not? So these are just some things that we may look at or we may engage in conflict that we want to think about. As I wrap this up, I want to give us a couple examples. So we are looking at effectiveness and appropriateness, right? Does it accomplish the goals, and does it meet appropriate standards? So I want to ask you a question. Let's say we look at spitting on a child versus hitting a child. So a child has done something incorrect, and we hit the child on the hand to, what is the goal of that, right? Is it because we're trying to get a particular outcome, like trying to get a child to pay attention to us? Is it that we are trying to maintain a relationship with the child, so we smack them on the hand because we want them to love us, right? Or is it that we smack them on the hand because they said something rude to us and we need to show them that we have power, right? So we're trying to save face. So what is the goal, right? So is hitting a child on the hand, is it effective in getting the goal that we have? And in this case, the goal might be to get the attention, right? So let's say the goal was instrumental. Now we want to look at, is it appropriate in this context, in this society? Is hitting a child on the hand the norm? Is it acceptable? If it is not, then although it might be effective in getting the child's attention, it is not appropriate, so therefore we lack conflict competence. However, if in a particular time and space, hitting a child on the hand is appropriate and it is effective in getting the child's attention, which is an instrumental goal, then yes, we would say that we have conflict competence. So I have a question here that you're looking at, which is worse? Is it worse to hit a child or to spit on a child? And we have to take this through these lens of effective and appropriate. Which one causes more harm? What influences the choice that we use to get into this conflict, to do or to engage in this particular behavior? And I have a question there for us to ask, right? Is violence acceptable in some cases? So, for example, someone spits at you. What is the effective and appropriate response, right? How would you respond to someone spitting at you? What would you do that is both effective to get the goals that you have and appropriate that meets within the standards of society? I hope this short clip addresses some of the questions that you may have in conflict competence and brings some of it to a close for us as we wrap up some of our conversations. Thank you, and please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions.